If this recent FBI raid against Donald Trump's home had been directed against Hillary Clinton and one of her 1,000 scandals, I'd be very objective about this, which is kind of the worst thing for these sort of people and the two-party cartel. The moment Donald Trump got in actual trouble for one of his 1,000 scandals, Republicans and Trump cult members specifically came up with these talking points, and it was claimed that this was just like in a third world banana republic. This was something we would see in a communist backwater hellhole, that a former head of state actually gets investigated and there's some agents dropping by and picking up some boxes. This is so outrageous, okay? And then, of course, we heard this interpretation that this is kind of this major, monstrous attack of the leftist deep state to prevent Donald Trump from saving America. But Donald Trump creates problems where there are none, and he is literally drowning in the problems he has caused for himself, problems he caused for his family, problems he has caused for his lawyers, and problems he has caused for his followers. And he can only handle so many problems at a time, and if he drowns with his problems, his supporters will drown with his problems. As I've said before, it was a very, very lucky day for Hillary Clinton when she lost the presidential race, right? She may think she wanted to be president, but if she actually had become president, she would have drowned in her 1,000 scandals. And it's not as if the real crazy stuff would have come out and she would have been prosecuted for the real crazy stuff, because that would embarrass the entire government and the entire system and the entire two-party cartel. No, it could have been many smaller things, right? Such as her email server thing. And then we would have seen an FBI raid and they would just grab some computers and servers, and then she would get in trouble for mishandling classified information, and then she would be barred from future office. But if it's that many scandals, right, half of the country would have fought Hillary Clinton and using every opportunity to cause trouble for her. And because Donald Trump is so polarizing, half of the country wants to see him destroyed, and it's probably the best outcome for the Don if he gets a soft verdict for mishandling some documents, and he's out of the political race, and he can focus on himself and his family and his business, and politics will forget him fairly quickly, especially if his cult following actually if his cult followers actually attach themselves to Ron DeSantis. And I've said this in my last video, Ron DeSantis is probably very happy about this raid, and many other high-ranking Republicans are secretly happy about this raid, and many people in the Pentagon are very happy about this raid because it could take Donald out of the circulation, could take him out of politics without directly angering his followers. So it's not the Republican Party that ends Donald's political career. So his followers are not angry at the Republicans, but instead it's the FBI, it's the Justice Department under Biden. They ended Donald's career, so the anger is directed at them. It solves a very important problem for the Republican Party. You get rid of Trump, but you keep his supporters and you can attach them to Ron DeSantis. The newspaper New York Post published an article about the judge who greenlit this FBI raid against Trump. And as we know, you need a probable cause, you need all the paperwork to actually greenlight this. It's been reported that this judge, many years ago, as a regular lawyer, represented people that worked for Jeffrey Epstein. This was when Epstein got his very, very soft deal. And to achieve that, some of his people had to be very, very cooperative without spilling all the beans and exposing the whole government. The fanatical Trump supporters are now going crazy over this article in the New York Post because it reinforces this cliche of the satanic pedo leftist deep state attacking America, and Trump plays the role of the hero fighting this deep state. So this dirty judge, ex-dirty lawyer, greenlit this FBI raid to stop Trump from becoming president again and stop him from saving America. So this is kind of the narrative that's being pushed right now. So it's really, really grotesque how selective the memories of some people are. So of course we know about the sex parties, the porno parties with Trump and with Epstein. I mean, there's footage of those two together, and if you reconstruct their relationship, it's really quite interesting because they've both been powerful people, and they've spent a lot of time in Florida. At some point, Epstein became too reckless. This is when, all of these new victims, minors, were brought into Epstein's place more and more and more and more. So this became very, very unprofessional from this behavior from Epstein. If you want to be a criminal, you got to be professional about it. Otherwise, people don't want to associate with you. And so at some point, Trump distanced himself from Epstein, but that doesn't mean that, that this is, you can just forget about their past. Imagine the opposite case. Imagine if this judge that has greenlit the FBI raid, imagine if that judge had partied in the past with Epstein. Now that would be a sensation now for the Trump cult members, wouldn't it? That would be a real sensation. But because it's Trump, they just want to forget about it and they don't mention it. Then next, we have an interesting link. Alan Dershowitz. So Alan Dershowitz is very close to Trump, and he was also Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer. And Dershowitz himself has been accused by women from this whole Epstein case, and he's threatened to sue them or has sued them. It's a complicated legal mess. There's a lot of accusations and counter-accusations. And Dershowitz was always very, very vocal about Prince Andrew. So he was really, really defending Prince Andrew and, basically risked his own reputation for Andrew, who then settled, as we know. The prince has settled. And so, Dershowitz was very, very loud in counter-accusing some of these women. And Dershowitz was very, very loud in advertising for Trump over the last years. The next person that comes to mind is Brett Kavanaugh, who became a Supreme Court judge thanks to Trump. There were many accusations against Kavanaugh from several women. Kavanaugh used to work for the superstar lawyer Kenneth Starr, who worked for Jeffrey Epstein years ago. And Starr supposedly had information he shouldn't have had. That's according to the book Dead Men Tell No Tales, but as I've mentioned, it's a very complicated case. A full investigation would have embarrassed the entire American political system, the entire government, the entire system, the entire two-party cartel. And also, we've learned that Epstein was some sort of a confidential source for the FBI and possibly even the CIA. So at the moment you get this designation, you have special protection because you may or may not get information that the FBI or the CIA can't get otherwise. And if this information relates to weapons, international weapons smuggling, or weird banks, laundering money for maybe the Iranians to buy bits and pieces for the nuclear program, something of the sort. If Epstein can get those kinds of information, or he can get access to people with that kind of information, then the national security argument dominates. And what Epstein can do for the government is then more important than Epstein's many female victims. Former President George W. Bush personally was on the phone with multiple senators to influence them so that Kavanaugh can become a Supreme Court judge. And so the Bushes are really close to the Clintons, and Trump's administration was more or less a Bush administration if you count all these people in interesting and important offices, all these government officials that the same people you would have seen with a President Jeb Bush, right? And so reality doesn't really fit this primitive narrative of a satanic leftist pedo deep state, and the right-wingers or the Republican types are going to save us all. It just doesn't work that way. So the Clintons are close to the Bushes, and George W. Bush used his influence to make Kavanaugh a Supreme Court judge. Kavanaugh, of course, got his degree. Kavanaugh got his degree from the Yale University, or multiple degrees, and his closeness to George W. Bush indicates that he may have been a member of a secret society at Yale, may have been Skull and Bones, may have been Scroll and Key. There are several. Kavanaugh served as staff secretary in the executive office of President Bush. This was after the weird recount in Florida after the presidential elections of 2000. So it's really bizarre to see some traditional conspiracy media at some point defending Trump, defending Kavanaugh, defending all these people that have Bush ties, when conspiracy media used to tell us that the Bushes were evil and that the Bushes worked for the New World Order and whatever. So which is it? And then under President Bush, Kavanaugh picked new judges, and at some point, Kavanaugh may have even covered up for the Clintons. There was this supposed suicide of Clinton advisor Vince Foster. Truly interesting case. Vincent Foster was Bill Clinton's lawyer and advisor. Supposedly killed himself in 1993 in a park close to Washington. And shortly before his death, he may have had a phone call with Hillary. Congress wanted information from him about documents that Hillary wasn't really giving the government. Sounds interesting, right? And so, Kavanaugh actually kind of made this problem go away for the Clintons. So it's not what you think, right? It's not this bad leftist deep state against the good right wingers. Government is really truly all bad at the top, and it's a two-party cartel. These people are not here to help you. Next, we have Alexander Acosta. Just briefly mentioning him, he became Trump's labor minister, something of the sort, and Alexander Acosta was instrumental in getting Jeffrey Epstein that soft deal around 2008. At a later point, Acosta defended himself, and he implied that it was impossible for him to really nail Epstein. He wasn't going into specifics, but it really sounds like there was special protection on the grounds of national security. So this is something that's kind of common. If somebody like Epstein was indeed an intelligence source, you can't prosecute that person like you could a normal person. So there's always this national security argument, and people like Acosta, they don't necessarily understand the whole truth, but they're being told this is way above your head, this is way above your pay grade. It has to do with national security and international stuff, and much more important than these girls that were abused. Next, a person called Mandelker. You may have never heard of that person. So, instrumental in getting Epstein his soft deal around the year 2000. Instrumental was a person called Sigal Mandelker. That's a woman. So she was a government attorney. She was a very powerful person. And in March of 2017, President Donald Trump nominated Mandelker to get into a position connected to international finance and combating terrorism and financial intelligence. And Mandelker was really, really involved with this Iran situation. So Mandelker's job was to make sure these sanctions against Iran are biting. So they get slowed down with their nuclear weapons program. Right? So Mandelker was a true hawk in the Trump government when it came to Iran. So isn't that interesting, right? Sigal Mandelker gets Jeffrey Epstein a soft deal, and Jeffrey Epstein may have been a confidential important source. And then Sigal Mandelker is tasked with these surveilling international finance and money flows to keep Iran from buying certain things or evading the sanctions. So of course that begs the question, did Epstein supply important information against Iran? Was Epstein therefore specially protected? So yeah, there's another interesting link between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And it's really, really hard to tell from individual to individual to individual if these are truly evil people or they're just weighing options against each other and they're focused on Iran and this is supposedly the bigger problem than, underage female victims of Epstein. Maybe these people feel super guilty for making these choices. Maybe they feel proud for making these choices. Maybe this is all for they think it's all for the right cause. So you can't paint these people automatically as evil. You can't you can't conclude that they're evil and then they have bad intentions and that they're part of some secret pedo network. Of course, you should look at them really, really close. You should look at everybody really, really close if they're part of something super weird and super messed up. But you can't just pick and choose whatever serves your purpose or you think serves your purpose. Right? So you can't fault that one judge who greenlit this FBI raid against Trump. You can't blame that judge for having been connected to Epstein's soft deal many years ago. You can't blame that guy, but then ignore all these other people involved that are really, really close to Donald Trump. Trump is like a machine that produces new problems. So he's drowning in his problems, and supporters are drowning with him. It's a cult that's been created around him. And this cult now ignores anything that could make Trump look bad. I mean, some people understand that this is deceptive. Some people don't understand that this is deceptive. And those who know it's deceptive, they may think it serves their purpose. It's still going to save America. They have to lie to make things better. But it's not helping you. Trump is not helping you. The more trouble somebody causes for himself, the more likely it is that this person has special protection for being some sort of an intelligence asset, or the more likely it is that this person gets compromised by someone or some networks in a clandestine way. So why take the risk with Trump? This guy's a black box. You bought the cat in the bag. You don't know what's going on behind this guy, or you don't know all of it. So why take that risk? Why choose that one guy as a savior who is least likely to save you from anything, who can't even save himself from anything, unless, of course, he's been being given, special freedoms and special deals and special ways out of jail.